take your needle and place it under both loops of the first slip stitch. Join in your new color 3 and pull the loop through. You're going to do that again with the second stitch. But because we want to pick up more stitches than there are slip stitches, into this next slip stitch, I'm going to pick up 2 stitches by going into the back loop first, and then going under both loops. I'll show you that again. We're going to pick up 2 stitches with regularly, just using both loops of the slip stitch. And then we're going to pick up 2 stitches into the same slip stitch by going into the back loop first, and then going under both loops. And I'm going to continue that across until I've picked up all my stitches. Okay, I've joined 2 rows now to the slip stitches in color 2. You can see I joined here through that slip stitch. Then I've also joined the next row here through this second slip right there. But now, because we're going to have more rows than there are slip stitches in color 2, I'm going to join once again to this same second stitch. I'm going to join there twice. I'll show you how to do that. So got my last 3 stitches of this row. I'm going to knit 1, I'm going to knit front and back, bring the yarn to the front, slip purlwise, and then just pick up that slip stitch again. And we're going to work and knit those 2 together. I'll show you what that looks like. So on the right side, you can see that slip stitch. It just has 2 joins coming out of it. And the way you're going to work all of your rows going forward is you're going to join once to this slip stitch, twice to this one, once to the next, twice to the one after that, and so forth. So you'll have 1.5 times the number of rows in color 3 that you have slip stitches in color 2. We've got at least 1 strip of the alternating color 1s with color 2s, and then we've added color 3 blocks along this edge. And now we want to start another strip just like this one where we have color 1. This might be like block 9. And we're going to be joining color 1 to the 26 bound off stitches along the edge of this block. We've cast on 42 stitches with color 1 and slip the first one and knit across the rest till we reach this last stitch. We're going to bring the yarn to the front of the work and slip that last stitch. Then we're going to pick up the first of the bound off stitches along the edge by going from back to front under both loops of that bound off stitch. Return our work, hopefully without dropping anything off, and knit the slip stitch and the bound off stitch together. Depending on how tight you've bound off, this may be a little tricky. We've done that, and we can knit back across. I've now worked 3 complete rows of this block. Then I've knit across to the last stitch, pulled the yarn to the front, slipped that stitch over, But instead of joining this, after I've worked 3 joins already, and you can see they're all connected there. Instead of joining this stitch to the next bound off stitch like I have been doing, I'm going to skip that one and work through the one following. And that is because I have a few more bound off stitches along this edge than I'm going to have rows to join. So I'm occasionally going to be skipping some of these bound off stitches and just moving on to the next one. So the same thing, I pick up the stitch I'm going to use from the back to the front under both loops, rotate my work, and knit those 2 stitches together. Slip stitch and the bound off stitch. Make my join. And that's what it looks like on the back. You're gonna have these nice little knit stitches. Something to keep in mind when working the block 10 and these blocks with color 2, you want to keep the slip stitches along this edge pretty loose, because as you can tell, the distance that this block travels along this edge is pretty short, but the same number of rows have to travel a much longer distance for the blocks in color 2. So you want to keep these slip stitches along this edge fairly loose so that they don't pull the block in. I've worked my second row. I've done my knit front and back on this side, worked across. I have 3 stitches remaining on the left hand needle, and this time we're going to knit 2 together to decrease on this side, bring the yarn to the front, slip the last stitch, and then instead of picking up the next slip stitch, we're going to skip one and pick up this one, because we're going to be making 20 garter stitch ridges, 20 rows for this block, but there's 30 slip stitches along the edge of here, so we have to skip a bunch. So instead of picking up this next one, we're skipping one, and we're going under both legs of the second. We're rotating, turning the work, knit 2 together to make the join, then slip, slip, knit, and working back across. One question you might be asking is, how do I keep track of whether I should be joining to the next bound off stitch or the next slip stitch, or whether I should be skipping the next one? If you don't want to be always counting the rows and making the calculations. What I do is I inspect my knitting and I look at the joins and where they're joining, and you can tell. So for blocks 9 and these types of blocks, remember you're working 3 joins. So there's 1, 2, 3 joins into 3 bound off stitches, and then you're skipping 1 bound off stitch, and you see it right there. That's a bound off stitch that doesn't have anything attached to it. Then you have 3 joins, and again you have that little space, that bound off stitch that has nothing attached to it. So you can always see where you are. Say you've worked 2 joins and you see that there's that slip or skipped bound off stitch right there, and you've worked 2, you know that the next one is going to be into the next bound off stitch before you skip. Likewise, when you're working with the slip stitches. So here we have the first join in color 2 to the first slip stitch, and then this slip stitch, the very next one, has nothing connected to it. The second join is up here to this slip stitch. The third is to the next, and that means we know that on the next row we're going to be skipping the next slip stitch and working into the following one.